All right. Good. All right. We are live. All right, guys. Just the season to be scary snowed in. I mean, I know Christmas is over, but we're still January. We've had some hell of a lot of storms here. We had some ice storms. We had some snowstorms. My state especially. So much so that I've had packages delayed and all. Thank goodness, knock on wood, that we haven't had any power outages so far. But anywho, at least I thought now would be a good time to have a little snowed in or iced in scare-a-thon here. We're going to do a few things tonight. First of all, we're going to start off with Sir Spooks' new one. And then we're going to go from there, okay, guys? Okay, once I'm through with certain videos, I will come in and check the chat, see if anybody's there, okay? So just keep cool. Just keep cool. If I haven't replied to you yet, just be patient, okay? Alright, as always, links to the original videos will be in the description box below once I'm done with the broadcast. So, without further ado, let's go. This is Sir Spooks' new one. The top 10 scary videos you should not watch by yourself. Alright, you guys ready? I know I am. So without further ado, away we go.
Hello everyone, my name is Sir Spooks and today we'll take a look at 10 scary videos. But before we begin, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future content. I have a goal of reaching 1 million subscribers and it would mean a lot if you guys could help me get there. Alright, with that said, let's begin.
Oh wow, he's this close to receiving a million subscribers. Man, I remember when I used to watch him in my days when I first started my associate's course in electrical, and then it went on to be bachelor's. So yeah, I've been watching this guy for a while. So I recommend you guys do too. He's got some good spooky stuff. So without further ado, like I said, let's go.
The following post you're about to see was uploaded to the popular paranormal subreddit by a user named Seb, who says that video in question was sent to him by his mother. He writes that she is fostering children, and she thought that one was sitting on the chair, but it disappeared and you can't even see any legs. Very strange and eerie indeed. Let's have a look, shall we?
He's not there anymore. Whoa, what in the world?
Just by taking a look at the video, there's definitely something creepy going on here. The uploader also went on to say in his original post that the flashing light that's seen in the video is from a TV that was turned on. He also states that the house in which this incident occurred was built just 1 year ago, meaning that there shouldn't be any vengeful spirits roaming around the place. So, why exactly is this happening, and perhaps a better question, what exactly is happening here?
Ooh, no eyes.
Perhaps it's constructed atop an ancient burial ground, disturbing restless spirits, or maybe dark energies were unintentionally harnessed during construction, creating a paranormal presence. Alternatively, traumatic events within the family could imprint emotional energy, making the house susceptible to haunting. But this is purely speculation. While we don't know exactly what this video shows, let's just hope that this house and its inhabitants can go back to resuming a normal life.
Or like like Arctic Hicks would say, you know, it might be a video in it. It might be a video in it. They may have, especially, and they'd have a perfect advantage with the lights flashing on the TV, on and off on the TV, to put like some sort of weird doll on the chair, and then stop, and then take it out once it's gone dark, and then stop and put another one with eye holes in it or something. I don't know. I don't know. It might be a hoax. It might be fake. Then again, it may be not. It may not be. I don't know.
If you're into collecting...
No. I'm sorry, Sir Spooks. Some of this is pretty cool, but I'm not into this stuff. So, let's... If you want to watch this commercial, watch the original video, guys. Number 9.
A Reddit user by the name of Faded47 posted this incredibly
that looks
spooky
like Hill
clip to
House.
the Ghost subreddit and says that
Or
what he
Castle.
managed to capture on video this night is, quote, the scariest shit that has ever happened to me in my own house, end quote. The uploader wrote, quote, so the other night I heard what sounded like something was sliding around the floor. Just turn the volume up and prepare to shit yourself, end quote. Well, without further ado, let's have a look.
I don't think I'll do that, but I'll at least watch the video. Goes an orb. Or a dust particle. Whichever one it is. What? So they had someone in the kitchen throw a dish or something. Really? Or it wasn't on there very well.
While a large portion of the video is just a room surrounded by nothing but silence, in the middle of the video we can hear an extremely sudden sound that sounds exactly like glass shattering. Amazingly, upon hearing this, the uploader seems to be pretty calm and collected despite what just happened. A lot of people in the comments seem to be pretty freaked out by the video, and I don't blame them. Sadly though, we still don't really know what's going on in the clip, and we likely won't know for a while now. So, what do you guys think is going on in this clip? Do you think that there's some sort of paranormal entity somewhere in this house? If so, why did it simply knock a glass onto the ground?
Because that's probably what he got his buddy to do. His buddy's out of the way, or his girlfriend's out of the way, and they threw a glass or something and it shattered on the floor. And now, way to go, guys. Now you got to clean that up. That's not going to be pleasant, guys. Trust me. It's not going to be pleasant. Now, if it really was a paranormal force, I apologize. If they did not plan that, then I apologize. But it looks like to me, or it sounds like to me, that it's something that was planned. Now that's just me. But
perhaps it was an attempt to scare the homeowner. If so, then it definitely worked. Or was it simply a vibration from passing vehicles outside that made those objects fall by themselves in the kitchen?
Oh, come on, dude. Really? That thing's, if it's a vibration from a vehicle, it's got to be pretty damn close, like a subway or a train, right next to the house.
Kitchen. We may never know for sure.
No. Guess I'm losing my touch.
Finders Beepers History Seekers, a thrilling YouTube channel that
Oh
follows
yeah,
the
these
extraordinary
guys.
journeys of two intrepid explorers, Matt and Andy. With an insatiable curiosity for the unknown, this dynamic duo embarks on exhilarating adventures across the UK and Europe, delving into the realms of mystery, history, and the supernatural. While a lot of their videos are filled with undeniably creepy moments that are guaranteed to keep you awake at night, there's one particular video in which they explore an abandoned care home that may take the cake for being the creepiest of them all. According to Matt and Andy, the care home in question was shut down due to reports of abuse and terrible living conditions. While the vast majority of the video seems to be them wandering around the building with no problems, that doesn't stay that way for too long. At one point in the video, while making his way upstairs, Matt sees something or someone watching him from the top of the stairs. Take a look at the unsettling footage.
Because we went down to the basement, it's thrown me. Totally thrown me. That paper's, they're thick, aren't they? Wallpaper in here is like good quality wallpaper. I will say that. Yeah. But yeah, you can see it goes up again. Hey, wait up.
Ooh.
Hello? Hello? I feel like there's somebody down there as well. Right, I'm going up.
I gotta give it to him. He's brave.
Right, I've gone cold.
What in the world could this dark figure be, and what could it possibly want? Sadly, we don't ever get a good look at
there we
its
go.
features, so it is quite difficult to come up with any theories here, other than it being a simple shadow figure. After a minute or two, the two men review the footage just to see the figure once again. They then explore the building and conduct a thorough investigation for the figure, but they are unable to find whoever or whatever it was.
Okay, yeah. There it is. Yeah, see? It just kind of floats out of the way.
So we've just looked back at the footage, and there's definitely somebody at the top of those stairs. 100%. We've had a good look round, and I don't know where they could have gone. They can't fit through that hole where them trees were. No. They can't get. We're up on one of the top floors, so there's no way they've escaped.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's a window here. I'll show you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if it's somebody trying to mess with their head, draped in like a black cloak or something, you know, eventually in a place like this, they'd find him, or her, or them. But yeah, they didn't find anything. I don't know. I think they caught a shadow figure.
Yeah, so this seems like one of the only ways out, but if you look out this window, it's a right drop.
So what do you guys think is going on in this abandoned care home? Do you think that there could potentially be the ghosts of those who were mistreated there, looking to enact some revenge?
Maybe.
Or do you think that there's something entirely different going on here? As always, let me know in the comments below. Reddit user AppropriateGrab9929 posted this extremely chilling video to the aforementioned ghost subreddit and says that he believes to have recorded video of an apparition in an old building. He wrote a long caption that went along with the post, and it reads as follows. Quote, I took this video when I was in high school in 2016. It's shaky and old, but you can see something move from the left of the screen, then towards me. This doesn't look like an ordinary shadow, and it can't be since there was no light behind me. Not to mention, the way it moves is pretty scary. Also, I went to a boarding school that is pretty old and built on various cemeteries. This is the attic of one of the buildings I took classes in, which reportedly burned down hundreds of years prior. I took this video with flash just to be able to see in the dark, and after I watched it, I saw this. Not to mention, it's in the town where Friday the 13th was filmed, which isn't significant, but everything about the little town is spooky. Since some teachers lived in the dorms, I've heard stories from them of people singing in the dorms and running while students were away for break. I've had other weird happenings on campus that I can't explain. End quote.
Ooh.
By looking at the video, there definitely appears to be some sort of apparition moving around in the building. But because of just how hard it is to see in that building, we can't say for sure exactly what it is. Someone in the comments says that it looks like smoky outlines of people, which certainly seems pretty accurate. As always, be sure to let me know what you think is going on here in the comments.
Then again.
Show building video. There definitely
Oh,
appears to be some
yeah.
sort of apparition moving around it by looking at the video, there definitely appears to be some sort of apparition moving around in the building. But because of just how hard it is to see in that building, we can't say for sure exactly what it is.
No, we can't.
Someone in the comments says that it looks like smoky outlines of people, which
Yeah, it
certainly
does.
seems pretty accurate. As always, be sure to let me know what you think is going on here in the comments.
It could be a shadow, but then again, it couldn't be. It might not be.
Funeral homes are generally regarded as safe places due to their primary function of providing a respectful and dignified environment for families to mourn the loss of a loved one. These establishments are committed to offering support and guidance during a difficult time, ensuring that grieving families can focus on the healing process without worrying about external concerns. The moment ghosts are allegedly videotaped within these supposedly sacred spaces, the atmosphere shifts from one of solace to one of apprehension. The previously comforting surroundings become a canvas for the unknown, shrouded in the unsettling possibility that spirits may linger among the living. Take a look at this unsettling clip and see how this seemingly innocent funeral home shows that there may be a ghost lingering around the halls, wandering with nothing to do.
Got nothing to do. You should have crossed over, bud. Oh! Really? You suck at haunting.
Gratefully, this is one of those incidents in which it seems as though the spirit in question wasn't very harmful, as it can be seen simply knocking things over. But of course, that still doesn't make the video any less spooky.
No, I don't see any strings.
What do you guys think is going on here? Do you think that it's possible for spirits to be wandering around a funeral home?
Yeah.
If so, let's just hope that if you ever visit a funeral home, to pay respects to a loved one, that you don't have to encounter something like this.
Oh, yeah.
This YouTube video was posted by a woman known as Serenity Sue, who says that she was contacted by a subscriber named Simone Leslie, writing that in one of her earlier videos, she had caught a ghost. This then prompted Sue to ask Simone to screenshot this incident and to send her some additional information about it. She then puts an arrow on the screen to show us the exact spot that Simone has pointed out, which just so happens to be located in a cemetery.
Now the video right at this moment is slowed right down, and I'm actually reading a headstone here. I pan slightly around, and in the distance you will see a grey headstone, and the figure kind of looks at me and then looks away really, really fast, like she's been caught on camera. You will see that grey headstone, the figure look and look away, and you'll see the red arrow pointed to her. This is actually Simone's video that she caught and screen recorded it off her telly, put in her screenshot, and then she sent it to me.
By slowing down the footage at just the right moment, you can definitely see that there's something in the distance that almost looks like a grayish figure simply standing around the area and watching. Drop your opinions in the comments below. Whether you're a skeptic or believer, I'm eager to hear your take on this eerie footage.
Do it again.
Grayish moon.
I really need to look at that.
Distant don't load. Now the video right at this moment is slowed right down.
Oh, sorry guys, pushed the wrong button. All this, okay. All right. Now let me see. Yeah, I didn't see strings on that one, guys.
Just so happens to be low.
All right. I don't see anything.
Now the video right at this moment is slowed right down, and I'm actually reading a headstone here. I pan slightly around, and in the distance you will see a grey headstone, and the figure kind of looks at me and then looks away really, really fast, like she's been caught on camera.
Oh!
You will see that grey headstone, the figure look and look away, and you'll see the red arrow pointed to her. This is actually Simone's video that she caught and screen recorded it off her telly, put in her screenshot, and then she sent it to me.
By slowing down the footage at just the right moment, you can definitely see that there's something in the distance that almost looks like a grayish figure simply standing around the area.
Yes, there is.
Drop your opinions in the comments below. Whether you're a skeptic or believer, I'm eager to hear your take on this eerie footage.
Well, now it could have been just a young lady going by to pay her respects, and it could be a ghost.
Between this and the...
Now that's interesting. Let's look at that. Oh yeah, it disappears. I could have been a ghost. It could be just a little young lady dressed in black, paying her respects. I don't know. Well, she may be right. She may be right, though. It could be an apparition.
Between this and the movie Barbarian, I'm not sure that I'll ever feel comfortable about staying in an Airbnb ever again. This Reddit user known as 3410 posted this eerie video and said that he's hoping that people will be able to give him a logical explanation for what was captured on camera, other than it being chalked up to a ghost. He writes that he traveled to Tucson, Arizona for a U of A basketball game. and after the whole night, he proceeded to crash on the couch, relax, and eat some good food to unwind. The uploader then states that he started to videotape his drunk friend, and during one point in the video, the man's dog is staring around with a blank expression on its face, and then, out of nowhere, this happens.
Ashley, you look down.
Busted.
I'd say he's out cold. Well, his eyes caught something.
Whoa. Nothing.
How is it possible that the Redditor's shoe just managed to flip right side up? It's definitely quite bizarre and unsettling, to say the least.
You got an OCD
Now,
ghost
the Reddit
with
community
you.
awaits further updates from the uploader, hoping for additional context or explanations that might shed light on this mysterious occurrence. Let me know if you have any sort of theories for this one in the comment section down below.
Yeah. I think you got an OCD ghost. I don't know. I don't know. They definitely had the dog's attention, that's for sure. It definitely had the dog's attention. Let's see it again. Yeah, let's do this. See this again. Now look at the dog. Look at the dog. It sees something. And then there's that.
Whoa. Nothing.
How is it possible that the Redditor's shoe just managed to flip right side up? It's definitely quite bizarre and unsettling, to say the least. For now, the Reddit community awaits further updates from the uploader, hoping for additional context or explanations that might shed light on this mysterious occurrence. Let me know if you have any sort of theories for this one in the comment section down below. This next video that comes to us by Reddit user Big Tree Fall was posted to the popular UFO subreddit, which is a community dedicated to UFO sighting videos and general discussions about UFOs. The video in question that you're about to watch was taken by an amateur astronomer and seems to showcase some sort of bizarre, glowing red object right over the moon. Take a look and see for yourself.
There's the moon. What the what? Look at that. Even shines in the light reflection on the moon. Yeah, look at that. What is that? Yeah.
In the video, attention is drawn to a captivating sight, a mysterious glowing red object positioned prominently against the backdrop of the moon. The distinct contrast of the vivid red hue against the lunar landscape intensifies the enigma, prompting viewers to question the origin and nature of the observed phenomenon. Some say it could be extraterrestrial origins, attributing the sighting to potential alien activity, while others come up with more terrestrial explanations, considering phenomena like atmospheric anomalies, celestial events, or even man-made objects. Whether this mysterious red object is a product of natural celestial phenomena and advanced technology is something yet to be fully understood. The video serves as a testament to the ongoing fascination with the unexplained and the role that online communities play in collectively unraveling the mysteries of our world.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that coming at me.
Janitors play a crucial and often underappreciated role in maintaining the functionality and cleanliness of various spaces, be it schools, offices, hospitals, or other public facilities. You'd think that janitors have a relatively safe job, seeing as how they simply clean and maintain things. But as it turns out, this video by TikTok user SkiBoy2Digit proves that sometimes even janitors can get targeted by the paranormal. In the video, the janitor in question can be seen walking around in the hall, videotaping his surroundings.
Oh, I remember this. I remember Arctic X reacting to this.
Relatively quickly. He then enters a classroom that has some balloons in it, but he sees this particular red one in the corner that's freaking out. Then, as he exits the classroom, take a look at what happens.
I was in here cleaning up.
We've seen this before. Those of you who've been on Arctic X live broadcast, you've seen this. What's this? What's this? This is creepy.
Follows me. And do your thing, you stupid balloon. I got you on camera now, so let's just see?
Ooh.
That right there.
Now take me home with you. Wednesday? Where did you find that? What is that? I'm not exactly sure. Strange. There's usually a murderous clown behind one of these. Go see it. Go watch The Addams Family. That was great. That was a great animated movie. Great movie. Both versions were actually. And here he comes. And don't leave without me. I like you. He likes you, dude. He likes you, dude.
See, no.
Dude, I think someone's just trying to cheer you up.
Interestingly, the balloon can be seen following.
Yeah, it's a little creepy, but I think somebody
much
just.
to his discomfort and terror. Then, about a minute or so later, he then sees this, which is equally freaky.
I think somebody's just trying to cheer you up.
It just follows me no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Oh!
No, I can't.
Dude, that's fast. That is fast.
No, I can't.
Yeah.
What in the world could possibly be going on here?
The school's haunted?
Roaming the halls of this school. If so, why is it targeting this innocent janitor? It seems that we may never know the answer.
I know what it is. I think it's a playful ghost. And it just wants to have some fun with him. I think it might be the ghost of a kid, and it loves pulling pranks on people. I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is. Yeah. Quoting Jason Hawes, the Ghost Hunters, he would probably say, I don't see this very often, but after looking at the evidence, I would admit I do believe the place is haunted. I think that's exactly what we've got here. I think the school's haunted. Yeah.
No, I can't.
We need to get this guy a Nope Not Me t-shirt from Arctic X.
This video was posted to the aforementioned Ghost subreddit by username Gabaflasm. It's a home security camera video that initially appears to be quite normal, but is actually anything but. In the video, we watch as the uploader's brother is taking stuff out of his vehicle in the middle of the day. So far so good. But then, as he's doing so, something absolutely terrifying can be seen in the background. Prepare to change your pants once you see this.
Oh, well. Ooh! And he it disappears. Did you see that? Watch this. Watch this, guys. Watch this. You didn't even see it. Watch this. Yeah, comes over here, stoops down, and just disappears.
Out of nowhere, a mysterious figure can be seen standing up and wandering around for a few seconds before disappearing entirely. The figure in question almost looks like some sort of naked ghost guy, like something you'd see straight out of the horror movie Hereditary. The uploader then went on to write saying that his brother allegedly never heard or saw anybody, and said that there would be no nearby visitors that would be walking on the property either. This is by far one of the most unsettling videos that I've seen in quite a long time, just because of how disturbingly real it all feels. What do you guys think? Do you think that the video is authentic? If so, what do you think is going on? Is there some sort of ghostly entity wandering around, or is something else entirely different going on here? Be sure to let me know in the comments below.
It looks like a residual haunting, it's like a video cassette or a video that's playing over and over again. It's just a moment in history, a moment in time that was caught, and it's just playing over and over again. Unlike the intelligent haunting, where you can actually interact with the ghost itself. I don't know. That was weird.
And that was 10 scary videos. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did,
we did.
Subscribe for more scary content. My name is Sir Spooks, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Alright, we got it, guys. We did it, guys.
Remember to click my link in the description or scan my QR code to get insane bonuses available only via my link. Thank you, Raid Shadow Legends, for sponsoring today's video.
Yeah, you guys want to watch the full thing and see the commercial for Raid Shadow Legends, don't worry, I'll have the link to the original video in here. Alright, let's see. We got any... no, nobody yet. Guess I'm losing my touch. I don't know. It won't be the first time, but... Alright. Let's see. Alright. Oh, here we go. Some. Ooh. Here's some King Frostmare TV. Here's Frostmare TV. King Frostmare. Let's have a little King Frostmare video, shall we? Alright, let's go. Scary videos that may keep you from your sleep. Alright, you guys ready? I know I am. But without further ado, away we go.
Most of you are familiar with the chilling case of user Dino Nuggets. He's experiencing a pretty malevolent haunting in his house. He tried to cleanse his home several times, however, was never able to get rid of that for good. And the more time had passed, the more terrifying events unfolded. He had installed several security cameras in his house to capture as much activity as possible. This night, he had an investigator over that was documenting this haunting to determine what further steps should be taken. And a bit later that night, his living room camera captured the following.
Ooh, it follows him down. Run, dude, run! I don't think that door is going to keep it out, though.
As the man makes it downstairs into the basement, we can see the shadow apparition following him. How creepy. It would appear that this thing likes to stalk people down there.
Mm-hmm.
The reason, however, is unknown. We'll keep our eyes open for further updates. This recording was sent in by Lewis, and he tells me that he found it in the paranormal subreddit. Apparently it was captured by a property owner who was waiting to catch the reason for some of the disturbances his family had to face in the past couple of nights. The motion sensor turned on several times and activated their security cameras outside of their property, and it's only supposed to do that should it recognize either a human or animal. But each time the camera got triggered, nothing ever showed up on the saved recordings. However, the following night was different, and when the man checked the recordings in the morning, he found something really strange looking.
Ooh, look at that. Got us a ghost in a gown here.
It appears that a woman is walking to the screen from the right side, but how?
Just sitting there, just standing there. Then she just disappears.
She must have been on the property already, since the entrance gate's to the left. Another oddity about this clip is that the woman just stops in her tracks and then disappears into thin air. Was it an artifact that was possibly caused by the rain? But that wouldn't trigger the emotion alert. Maybe the spirit of a lady who was visiting their property.
Then again.
The emotion is an artifact, just as the end.
Okay.
She must have been on the property already, since the entrance gate's to the left. Another oddity about this clip is that the woman just stops in her tracks and then disappears into thin air. Was it an artifact that was possibly caused by the rain? But that wouldn't trigger the emotion alert. Maybe the spirit of a lady who was visiting their property. Now we want to take a look at a pretty creepy recording that was shared by a paranormal team. User Dr. Muerte has posted it in the paranormal section of Reddit and was hoping to get answers. The team was investigating a graveyard in the midst of night, and they did not come across anything unusual in the beginning. They started their night per usual, K2 meters and several EVP sessions. It was at a random point of the night, however, when they were filming towards the crypt on the upper level, and there were many gravestones that were surrounding the team. Once they pan the camera downwards again, something really strange appears.
Ya te digo, muy temprano. Ya te digo, muy temprano.
Oh!
Ya te digo.
There he is. Ooh, woman in white.
A small figure is walking by in what appears to be a white dress. Commentators speculate that this might even resemble a wedding dress. The statue of this apparition seems to be really small.
Yeah, look at that.
And it does look like a female that is walking by here. It's unlikely for it to be a bug or anything. But what other explanation could this sighting have, in your opinion? It's certainly a remarkable recording if it hasn't been tampered with. Maybe it was a spirit wandering around the graveyard in the middle of the night. The next was captured by channel The Oslaskans, and it appeared that a mysterious event has caused the man in the following video to actually get out his cell phone. He tells us about really odd noises he was hearing in the past couple of nights, and that he even noticed shadows in the corner of his eyes. Apparently he was situated in a pretty old building, and I assumed he was at his workplace. That's
So it's about 2 o'clock in the morning.
pretty old T-folders that but we have, and it's unlikely for it to be a bug or anything. But what other explanation could this sighting have, in your opinion? It's certainly a remarkable recording if it hasn't been tampered with. Maybe it was a spirit wandering around the graveyard in the middle of the night. The next was captured by channel The Oslaskans, and it appeared that a mysterious event has caused the man in the following video to actually get out his cell phone. He tells us about really odd noises he was hearing in the past couple of nights, and that he even noticed shadows in the corner of his eyes. Apparently he was situated in a pretty old building, and I assume he's at his workplace. That's
Probably is.
So it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. I've been working in the studio, and the last couple of nights I've been hearing really creepy sounds. I've been hearing footsteps and like seeing things out of the corner of my eye. Now this is a really big old building, and so that's got me a little bit freaked out. But the top of it was just a few minutes ago. I was going to the bathroom, and I was standing in the stall, and I swear someone grabbed the back of my shoulder while I was standing there. If something happens, I want to have it on video.
first things first, checking that no other human soul is around.
Excuse me. That's a lot of junk.
Then he tries to make it towards the toilet stalls, to possibly record proof that something is still lingering there.
Oh. You hear something. What was? Oh, excuse me. Oh!
A scary-looking face is peeking at our cameraman here. The eyes are reflecting in a suspicious way, which causes some commenters to believe this might have been a ghost. What do you think? Was it a colleague of his that was pranking him that night? Or did this man capture something from another realm? Now we want to take a look at a video from user Danny Tumia. He stated in the past that he and his family are living in a really old apartment complex that, before renovation work, was serving as a hotel. Many ghost stories are being told by the building management, and Danny has seen some really weird stuff in there as well. Today he was following his son into the building's elevator to go back to their unit. It was then that he caught something pretty mysterious.
He just said the boys in here. Since he's still a fetus, I really didn't understand what he meant.
Bro, right above you. What is that?
On the wall. No, do you see that? What? Bro.
Oh yeah. Look at that. Look at
Danny
that.
states that he saw something strange right above his son.
Yeah,
And then there
look
were
at
those
that.
two handprints that appeared out
Those
of
aren't
nowhere.
his.
They look tiny, so it is believed that they belong to a child. A ghost child, perhaps. His son is talking about a little boy that he's seen once in a while. Could he be the reason for this event? Really eerie, isn't it? The following video was sent by Tobias M, and he forwarded this originally from Sinistro Hendrik Alves. It was captured by family in the United States that has had some pretty strange events unfolding in the past weeks. Apparently, they received a lot of motion alarms at night, only to be seeing weird hovering objects that were making it through their yard and driveway. This was one of their latest recordings.
No, what in the
Could it
world?
just be spider webs or a bug?
I don't
Very
think so.
unlikely, says the family. It happens so frequently at night that they believe something else is going on here.
I think
What
it
do you
is.
think? Paranormal? Or something way more rational? User Reslan has shared the pretty strange encounter in the paranormal section of Reddit. He lives in Malaysia and was out the night when this video was recorded. He states that initially his eye had caught a strange shape at the other side of the street. Besides an unusual hooting noise, he felt that what he was seeing was relatively unnatural.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta see it again. I'm sorry, guys. I gotta see it again.
It It happened to just
Sorry.
be spider webs or a bug. Very unlikely, says the...
Yeah, that's no spider web. That's no spider web. Look at it, real. That's a figure of some sort.
Could it just be spider webs or a bug? Very unlikely, says the family.
And if it's a video glitch, that's one hell of a video glitch. That's an amazing video glitch.
It happens so frequently at night that they believe something else is going on here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
It could be a
Paranormal?
jaywalker. I
Or
don't know.
something way more rational.
I don't know.
User Wrestlan has shared the pretty strange encounter in the paranormal section.
Oh,
of
yeah,
Reddit. He
Wrestlan.
lives in Malaysia and was out the night when this video was recorded. He states that initially his eye had caught a strange shape at the other side of the street. Besides an unusual weeping noise, he felt that what he was seeing was relatively unnatural.
Ooh, look at that.
Could we be seeing a ghost here? Some
Yeah.
commentators state that this sheet looks like a telecom, a prayer garb that is usually worn by Indonesian and Malaysian women. Could it be so? It's pretty hard to say if this could be an
Might
actual
be.
ghost, or just a regular woman in the end.
It might be.
Nevertheless, the man found this encounter extremely creepy. The next video stems from Andrea, and she tells me that she found it in a paranormal group chat. It is said that a man was parked outside of an apartment complex and waiting for his friend to come down. It was pretty late, and not many people were outside at the time. However, at some point, he noticed that a person seemed to be standing underneath a dark and covered store area to his left, which was a bit odd, since this man was pretty sure that nobody was standing there just moments ago. The man couldn't get his gaze off of that person, and realized that whatever it was didn't move. It was just standing there, staring to the direction of his car. After a few moments, he grabbed his phone and started filming, and then this happened.
Ooh. Look at that. Ooh.
First of all, what are we looking at here?
Ooh,
Is this even
look
a
at
normal
that.
person, like the uploader suggested? It appears to have a strangely shaped head.
Yeah.
Possibly no shoes on. But it's a bit hard to go into deeper detail, since once again, Mr. Potato Head recorded this incident. Comments range from a possible alien sighting to a special effects trick, or even a paranormal element.
It could be. 1099, as our kicks would say.
And we can all just speculate what exactly happened in front of that camera. What's your best guess? It's a pretty mysterious one.
Okay. Alright, guys. That's video number 2. Excuse me. Y'all, anybody in the chat tonight? No? Doesn't look like it's anybody in the chat, but oh well, okay. Alright, well, I'm gonna do one. We're gonna do one more. I'm gonna do one more. You know what? We're gonna do. I'm gonna react to one of my favorite years. Lazy Masquerade. We'll listen to some stories. We'll see. What, there was one. Scroll down. I'm out. Okay, I want to close my app. There we go. I'm a little bombarded here. There was one I was watching a while ago that I thought would be good. Okay, we've done that one. All right, here we go. Let's do 4 real-life cabin in the woods horror stories. You guys ready? And I'll try. I'm sorry. I'll try my best to stay awake here. Gosh. All right, guys. Here we go. Let's go. Things happen. Cabin in the
Number 1. I was having a drunken heart-to-heart with my dad the other night, and we were sharing some stories, which he told me in my dad the other one.
Right, that.
I was having a drunken heart-to-heart with my dad the other night, and we were sharing some stories from the past. He told me an experience he had back in the late 1980s, which he described as the luckiest escape of his life. After hearing the story, I'm inclined to agree. He was about 25 years old, and going through a rough patch in his life. Him and my future mum had just broken up. They would later get back together, but that's a different story. Anyway, he needed to get away for a while. As such, he decided to rent out a cabin for the weekend. Just him, the birdsong, and a few beers. He booked one in this really remote, wooded area. He goes and collects the keys from the cabin's owner, a really nice guy in his 30s. Friendly, helpful, no trouble whatsoever. He gives him a quick tour of all the rooms, asks if there's anything more he can do, and then leaves my dad to it. My dad spends his first day there, relaxing and recharging, enjoying the beautiful scenery, and trying to take his mind off his crummy situation. On that first evening there, he heads out on a long walk through the nearby woods. He wants to clear his head outside before the sun sets. He gets a little bit lost, however. By the time he gets back to the cabin, it's already dark. He enters the cabin, and immediately, something strikes him as weird. The curtains at the back of the cabin were drawn closed. He didn't remember closing them before he went out on the walk. Then again, his head was all over the place that weekend. "Hello?" he calls out. No response. Shaking it off as a mistaken memory, he walks into the bedroom to go to sleep. Again, something seems off inside. It wasn't the curtains again. There weren't any windows in the bedroom area. He says there was just a strange atmosphere in the room. He felt tense and ill at ease. Something in the back of his mind, in his subconscious, told him that there was a threat nearby. He grabbed his car keys and jacket, walked out the front door, got into his car, and drove to a hotel. For whatever reason, he refused to stay in that cabin. At the end of the weekend, he returns to the cabin at around 4 p.m. to drop the keys back to the owner. To his surprise, the owner's already there, along with several police officers. They're all astonished to see my dad. You see, the cabin's owner had come by a little earlier than he and my dad had agreed to collect the keys. Obviously, my dad wasn't there, so the owner had a look around the cabin to check that everything was all right. On the couch in the living room, there was a large, muddy shovel. That was a little weird, he thought. Then he entered the bedroom. Inside, he found several Polaroid pictures laid out neatly on the bed. They were of my dad, taken at various points throughout the day. One of him drinking a beer outside, one of him looking out the window. One was even of the cabin owner handing him the keys. They had all been taken from within the tree line. On the back of the last picture, someone had left a handwritten message. So close. Realizing that someone had been stalking my dad from the very beginning of his trip, and that my dad was now missing, the owner immediately called the police. When they arrived, they scoured the woods in search of my dad. Not too deep in, they found a freshly dug hole, 4 foot deep, 7 foot in length.
Ooh!
My dad arrived an hour later. The brain's a funny thing. Sometimes the subconscious takes in information that we aren't fully aware of.
Yep.
Perhaps something else was slightly out of place in the bedroom, or just different to how we left it. Whatever the case, the warning signals went off, and he listened. If this story has taught me anything, it's to always listen to my gut. Instinct probably saved my dad's life that night.
I have no doubt about it. Always listen to your gut and always trust your pets. Always.
Number 2.
For whom the bell's up.
This didn't just happen to me, but my friends, Macy, Eric, and Dorian too, while we were all out on a trip in northwest Montana. Macy's parents had a cottage out by Flathead Lake. One weekend, we all decided to head over there and do a spot of fishing. In this digital age, it's very easy to lose touch with nature. Personally, I was starting to feel like a caged animal that summer, trapped indoors with no reason to go outside. Well, no reason other than my crappy part-time job. I guess we all just wanted to reconnect with the great outdoors. They say that when you're around old friends, you act the same age that you were when you met them. That was definitely true for us. We were a bunch of 19-year-olds, goofing around like we'd just hit puberty. Some things never change. We get to the cabin, and it's absolutely beautiful. A serene little log cabin, far out in the middle of nowhere. It was nice to get away from the bustle of our town. I mean, the cabin still had internet and everything, so it's not like we were totally living off the grid. But for us, this was going to be a taste of what it felt like to be a real outdoorsman. We all unpack and get to fishing as planned. Not many bites that day, sadly. Dorian wandered off by himself, looking for a better fishing spot. When he finally came back a while later, he seemed a little agitated. He told us that while out fishing a ways away, he heard what he thought was rustling in the tree line to his right. A little concerned about what it might be, he kept an eye on the area. Most of his attention was still focused on his rod in the water when he heard what he thought was a bell ringing from the same spot in the trees. He swore that he saw a figure watching him from the bushes. Not that he could make out many features. He was still a fair distance away, but it looked like he was wearing a hoodie and crouching. That's when he grabbed his gear and hightailed it back to us. This put us all on edge. The closest cabin to ours was far, far away. We weren't expecting to see another soul this whole weekend. Still, it was probably nothing. We called it a day and headed back to the cabin early. We ate dinner and joked around until sunset, though we all kept occasionally glancing out the window. None of us said what we were looking for, but it was obvious that Dorian's story had made us all a little paranoid. Being the dumb kids we were at heart, though, we decided to stick around for the night. When you're deep in nature, the nights are particularly dark. No light pollution. Looking out the window was like looking into the abyss, unless you pressed your face right up to the glass. Then you could just about make out the outlines of the trees that surrounded us. To us, the slight fear we were all feeling was kind of fun. You know when you're with your buddies and you get spooked by something?
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, you all kind of stick around and try to spook each other as well. Well, it was kind of like that. If any of us were by ourselves, we'd have been freaking out. But since we were all together, it was a sort of mini rush.
Yeah, but it was.
Eventually, it starts getting late and we hit the hay. We're all sleeping in separate areas of the cabin. I'm in the living space on the couch. I'm exhausted from the long day, and the sound of the wind outside is sending me off to sleep. I'm almost out cold when I hear the distinct sound of a bell ringing. It was coming from just outside the front of the cabin. It sounds off once, and then again, and again. Sometimes quick and loud, sometimes slow and faint. I'm sitting upright in a heartbeat, and I don't have to call for my friends. They're all congregating in the living space now, keeping their voices low. It's the guy from the bushes, Dorian whispered to us all. He's outside the cabin. Pressing my eyes close to the window, I could see that he wasn't wrong. Out in front of the cabin, facing us, was a figure in a goddamn rocking chair. He was sitting stiff, rocking back and forth in the breeze. We have no idea how to react. After a while of watching in fear, Macy, the bravest of the group, opens up the window and shouts to the guy to go away, that his prank wasn't funny. The guy in the chair doesn't react, just sits there, rocking gently, the sound of the bell ringing out. We grab a few knives and cautiously walk out the front door of the cabin, staying in a tight group. I was just following Macy at this point, to be honest, hoping that he knew what he was doing. Get out of here, Macy shouts, as we slowly get closer to the guy. Again, he doesn't react, and for good reason. The guy in the chair isn't alive. It's an old, dead man. We panic. Eric made a break for the tree line before coming to his senses and running back to the cabin with the rest of us. We locked the door and made sure all of the windows were sealed tight. Then we called the authorities. It took what felt like a lifetime for them to finally find us. They were just as weirded out by the dead old man as we were. Examining him in greater detail, they said that whoever he was, he'd been dead for a long time. They could tell from the decomposition. He was most likely disinterred from his grave. Namely, some sicko had dug this poor guy up and put him in that damn rocking chair.
Oh my
Whoever had done
gosh.
this had also tied a small bell around the man's neck, which rang out as the chair rocked back and forth. A very light set of footprints could be made out in the dirt, leading up to the chair from the tree line. The authorities couldn't find a set leading back though, so God knows what direction the perpetrator walked off in.
Oh my gosh.
To our knowledge, the investigation never came to anything. Whoever was watching Dorian from the woods that day remains at large. Why they dug up the old man and used him to terrorize us, I have no idea.
Gosh. Some people. Oh my gosh.
Number 3. While I was growing up, my family would visit the same lake every year for a week every summer. We'd stay in the same cabin every time. As we got older, we would visit a large rock we called the Cliffs and jump off it. The rock was only 15 feet tall at its highest point, but the water was really, really deep. When we got older, we'd jump in and try to touch the bottom, but we never could. When my brother and I were in our teens, we took kayaks out to the cliffs to jump off on our own. We jumped off several times, and when we got too cold, we'd take a break on the top of the cliffs to warm up in the sun. As we were sitting there, we noticed a white shape in the water, floating towards the surface. It was a letter. H. Eventually, it sank back down into the water, and we lost sight of it. Before we could look away or say anything, another shape was floating upwards. It was the letter E. Eventually, it too sank below, but it was soon followed by 2 more letters, L and P. We didn't jump in after that. We stood up and left without saying a word. We never mentioned it to anyone, and I forgot it even happened after a while. Several years ago, I was working as a camp counselor, and I told this as a ghost story. I'd forgotten about it, and I texted my brother to see if I hadn't just made it up completely. I asked him if he remembered the time we went to the jumping cliffs alone and saw something in the water. He replied yes, that he did remember. I asked him what it was, and his reply was, letters. They spelled help. Number 4. I was spending a long weekend with my family in this log cabin. Nobody else around for miles. It was late afternoon, and I decided to go for a walk by myself through the woods. About 10 minutes in, something
That's a big
starts to
mistake.
feel a little off. I realized that it's because of the sound, or more specifically, the lack of it. The woods had become dead silent.
That's not
No
good.
bird chirps, rustlings, or general nature noises at all.
That's not
Just
good.
pure, unnatural silence.
Not good at all.
Anyone who spends a lot of time outdoors will tell you that a quiet forest is a dangerous forest.
Yes, it is.
I hear someone approaching from in front of me. When he comes into view, I see that it's a lone man in his 50s. As we come to pass each other, I get a close look at him. He's got thinning, grey hair, deep wrinkles across his forehead, piercing grey eyes, sickly, patchy skin. The reason I'm mentioning the details of his face is to highlight that this wasn't a mask. He's got this big smile plastered on his face, and his eyes are so wide they look like they're bulging out of his skull. This expression is frozen on his face. As we get closer to one another, his head turns so that he can keep his unblinking eyes fixed on me. A little creeped out, I give him a polite nod. He gives me nothing in return, just that wide-eyed, toothy smile. As we finally cross by each other, his head is turned to the side, his vision still fixed on me. I continue past him, but I'm on guard for obvious reasons. What the hell was this guy doing out in these woods, so far from civilization? There wasn't a house besides our cabin for miles. I glance over my shoulder to check that he's not following me. The blood drains from my face when I see him. He's still walking away from me, but his head is facing me, like it's on backwards, an impossible angle.
Ooh.
That messed up expression still on his face. I'm overcome by this sinking feeling, and I sprint off deeper into the woods. I want to put as much distance between me and him as possible. When I feel safe enough, I slow down and slap myself back into reality. The birds are chirping like normal again. Whoever that man was, He was walking in the direction of our cabin, but none of my family members caught sight of him. If this was some sort of prank, then I have no idea how he managed to get that effect. It was too real. Nor can I think why he'd be out in those woods, all by himself, where he'd most likely encounter no one. I still get nervous when I pass by strangers in the woods, and I always turn to check that they're not keeping an eye on me after I've passed them.
Ooh. Okay, that's creepy.
Hi guys, Lazy here, and thank you very much for listening. So,
No
Cabin in the
problem,
Woods
Lizzie.
stories, a fun little idea I thought. Some sort of paranormal, some not, some kind of ambiguous, I don't know. I know you don't all like paranormal stuff, but it's fun for me from time to time to do a few of them. Mix things up a little
Lazy,
bit.
it's
keep it a
always
little
fun
fresh.
when you do
But
paranormal.
yeah, I hope you enjoyed all the stories, and if you did, be sure to smash that like button or I'll smash you. And I'll be coming back with a new video very, very soon. Until then, guys, you all stay spooky. And remember, the best things happen in the dark.
Oh my god. Oh man. Let's see if we got anybody here now. Doesn't look like we got anybody. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. I'll do one more video. You know what? We'll do. Alright, we did 4 Cabin in the Woods stories by Lazy Masquerade. So let's do 4 scary true horror in the woods by Lazy Masquerade. I probably need to do more of Lazy Masquerade. I really like this guy. Alright, here we go, guys. Horror from
Number 1. This happened around 1971 or 1972, when my mother was about 14 or 15 years old. The incident occurred in a heavily wooded area near Montevallo, Alabama. My mother is the oldest of 5 children. She has 3 sisters and a brother who's the baby of the family. One weekend in the cooler months of the fall, my grandfather decided to take the whole family out for target practice with a rifle. That included my grandmother, my mother, and all of the aunts and uncles. My mother grew up quite poor, and they didn't always live in the best of neighborhoods, so my grandfather wanted to teach the kids how to defend themselves with a rifle if need be. Like I said, it was later in the fall, so the trees were bare, and there were lots of leaves on the ground. The wooded area was just off a dirt road, so this was a fairly rural area they were in. Since it was so far off the beaten path, my grandfather became startled when he heard the roar of a car engine so deep in the woods. My mother remembers the car as being a blue Ford Galaxy, something a little like this. Despite the fact that my grandfather had a gun, he totally freaked out and told my grandma and the kids to hide under a pile of leaves in the woods. He hid with them. The man in the driver's seat got out, dragged a woman's body out of the car, and just dumped her there in the woods and drove away. After my grandfather was sure that the man had left, everyone came out of hiding, and the woman who had been dragged out of the car sat up and stared them straight in the face. She was wearing a wig and a pair of eyeglasses. My mother and her whole family were relieved to see that she was still alive. My grandfather asked the woman if she needed help, but she said no, and that she'd be fine. She didn't appear to be injured, and obviously didn't want help. She hadn't put up a fight with the man when she was dragged out of the car, so she must have known the guy. Either way, my grandfather cut the shooting lesson short, and decided to rush the kids home, just to be on the safe side. On the trail back to the dirt road where my grandfather had parked the car, they passed the man in the blue Ford Galaxy, driving out of the woods. My mum looked over and noticed that he had a huge machete laying across the front seat beside him. My grandfather made sure that the man could see he was carrying a rifle, but everyone was careful not to give away what they had just seen. The man struck up small talk with my grandfather, asking him about what they were doing out in the woods. My grandfather explained that he had just taken the whole family out for target practice. The man told him to have a nice day and continued driving. The next day, my grandfather went back out to the same spot in the woods. There wasn't a body there. However, he did find the woman's wig, her purse, some Kleenex, and a pair of glasses. He collected the items and took them home. My mother became hysterical when he walked in the door carrying that stuff. She started screaming, "He killed that lady." My grandfather ended up taking the items to the police station. It turns out that that area of the woods was known for having shallow graves and being a dumping site for bodies. Early the next morning, as soon as my grandmother arrived at work, she called my mum just before the kids left for school. She told them not to take the bus that day, and that she would come home and pick them up, and that she would be home soon. On her way to work, she noticed the same Ford Galaxy, waiting at the kids' bus stop.
Ooh.
My mother never heard anything else about it after that.
Ooh.
Number 2. This happened at Christmas a couple of years ago, when I was spending the holidays with my parents and my little brother, as well as my cousins, aunts, and uncles. We live in a suburb of Ontario, but we were venturing out into the woods for Christmas, an idea that my parents had had for a while. They always loved the idea of being out in a hunting cabin during Christmas with the family. I'm 22 years old, but at the time, I was newly 18, and my little brother, Tom, was 11. We're really close, and we do everything together. We also had a dog, a German Shepherd named Trigger. He came along for the ride, too. He's a real softie, but can be really overprotective, especially with my brother. We left from our house on Christmas Eve at about 2 p.m. and climbed into our dad's truck, which was filled with all of our stuff and presents for the extended family. Tom and I were really excited, winding each other up, and my parents were having friendly conversation as we moved along the road. We arrived at the village close to where the cabins were, and caught up with my dad's sister, along with her husband and 3 kids. They didn't converse for long, but Billy was unsure of where to go from the village to get to the cabins, so my dad helped out by writing down the directions. We soon got back on our way, and arrived at the cabins at around 4 p.m. There was a cluster of them sort of spaced out around the woods. Each family had their own cabin, and there was one where everyone could meet up, which had a pool table, a swimming pool, all sorts. It was kind of the place we could all just chill together and enjoy each other's company.
Oh.
The weather was already really cold when we arrived, and the snow was falling all around us. My dad started a fire while my mum prepared dinner. The Christmas decorations were already up, and we played a few board games as the night got darker. My dad, Tom, and I decided before coming on this trip that at some point we'd go hunting, so we planned to go the next day. I'd been a few times with my dad, but this was Tom's first time. He was only there to watch though, as he was too young to shoot. It reached around 10 p.m, and my brother and I were getting a bit tired, so we decided to head to bed. My dad kept his rifles in a bag, which he kept under the bed I was sleeping on. He'd usually keep it locked up in a box, but thought there was no point since we were going hunting in the morning anyway. Tom and I were sharing a room at the end of the cabin, facing a flowing river. The view was beautiful. Tom and I fell asleep, with our dog, Trigger, lying at the bottom of Tom's bed. It was about 3 a.m. when I awoke to the sound of Trigger growling. I didn't find this particularly unusual, because my dad suffers from insomnia, so sometimes when he can't sleep, he sits in our sitting room at home and watches some TV. Like I said, Trigger is extremely overprotective and growls at any noise he hears. But that's when I noticed there was no light coming from under our door. My dad never just sits in the dark. I whispered to Trigger, telling him to be quiet as Tom slept, but his growling soon turned to barking, which woke Tom up. He asked me what was going on, but I said Trigger must have heard some deer or something outside. After all, we were in the middle of the woods. Suddenly, our bedroom door swung open, and the light switch was turned on. My eyes stung as they tried to focus on whoever was standing in our door. It was our dad. "Were you two laughing just now?" he asked, as I turned to look at Tom. I replied no, as he moved over towards our curtain, pulling it back as he looked out into the pitch-black wilderness. "What are you looking at?" Our dad closed the curtains again. "Nothing. Just go back to sleep." I was kind of creeped out that my dad didn't say anything about what he was doing, but he turned our light off and we tried to fall back asleep again. Of course, I couldn't. I was wide awake the rest of the night, flinching at pretty much every noise. It was about 4:30 a.m. when I finally drifted off, but it must have been only moments later that I heard strange, crunching noises outside our window. I was sure this wasn't an animal. It sounded like footsteps. I had this overwhelming feeling of fear, and I pulled the covers up over my face, sweat beginning to pour over my forehead. I then heard a faint tapping on our window, which lasted a good few minutes. I was so petrified I couldn't move. Trigger was awake by this point, and I saw his face turn towards the window, his ears pointed and listening intently. The tapping started again, but louder this time, causing Trigger to bare his teeth. A deep and husky voice whispered, "I know you're in there, little guy. Why don't you come out here and play with me?" Initially, I was filled with rage. I thought that it was bound to be one of our cousins playing a trick, so I leaned forward and peeked out a gap in our curtain, ready to give them hell for scaring the shit out of us. But standing there wasn't any of our cousins. It was a creepy old man who looked to be about 60, his hair matted and his clothes dirty and ancient. He was stroking the window with his hands, breathing on it as he spoke. I went into protective mode. I didn't know what else to do, so I grabbed my dad's hunting rifle from under my bed and pulled the curtain back. "Get the hell out of here, or I will shoot." I felt adrenaline rushing through me as the creepy man's eyes widened and the most terrifying smile appeared across his face. Trigger began barking louder than I've ever heard him bark. My parents obviously heard the commotion and came running through to our room, turning the light on. My mum screamed as she saw the old man through the window, Trigger fiercely continuing to bark. My dad yelled at the man, telling him that the police were on their way. The man legged it back into the woods. Tom was petrified, but I was angry more than anything else. How could some sicko do this? I was just extremely glad I had the rifle. The cops caught the guy not long after.
Good.
I found out a couple of days later that the creepy man was homeless and living in the woods, and was suffering from a lot of mental issues. It scares me to death to think about what could have happened to my brother had I not been there with the gun. We spent the remainder of Christmas Day at the cabin, but we stayed in our Aunt Billy's cabin overnight. There was no way we were sleeping in our own after what happened. We went home first thing on Boxing Day and never looked back. My dad only told me the other day that he knew someone was hanging around our cabin, so he intentionally left the rifle under my bed, just in case I needed to use it in self-defense. He did that because he didn't want to scare any of us. He called the cops as soon as he heard the laughing outside his window and the man singing nursery rhymes. He knew it would take a while for the cops to reach the cabin.
Ew.
Number 3. I grew up on the outskirts of a small southern town, and so I spent most days of my summer vacations prowling the woods close to my home. About a half-hour walk from my house, down dirt roads and overgrown deer trails, there was a sandy stretch of beach along a creek. Since it was so far removed from civilization, and since I had never seen another soul out there at the creek, I would often strip down naked and swim in the water to cool down in the summer sun. When I was a young girl, about 8 or 9 years old, I had gone down to my secret beach to go skinny dipping. I spent all morning there, watching herons and splashing in the water. Suddenly, I began to hear the sounds of something large, forcing its way through the undergrowth upstream a ways. I was frozen, standing naked in the middle of the creek, as 2 men emerged from the woods. They were much older than me, probably in their 30s. Something about the way they were dressed scared me. Anyone who spent a lot of time in the woods knows the danger of thorn vines and brambles, but these guys were dressed in flip-flops, cargo shorts and wife beaters. They were filthy and covered in scratches across their arms and legs, looking as if hiking through the woods hadn't ever been their agenda. I had left my clothes in an untidy pile on the bank, but to grab them, I would have had to move much closer to the men. As I frantically tried to think of a way of getting my clothes back without alerting these guys, one of them turned and locked eyes with me. I grew up around southern manners. Seeing as I was a naked little girl trying to cover myself with my hands, I would have expected him to avert his gaze. But all he did was elbow his buddy in the ribs, point at me, and whisper something beyond my hearing. When they both turned and began to advance towards me, malicious grins on their faces, I officially lost my shit. Luckily, years of spending all of my free time in the woods paid off. Forgetting modesty, I turned and ran at breakneck speed for the closest downstream deep channel. As I dove into the water, I could hear the men yelling and splashing behind me, trying desperately to catch up. I had always been at home in the water, and at this moment, I swam as if my life depended on it,
which it
very well might have. I knew exactly where I needed to go. Earlier that summer, I had discovered what I thought of as my secret hiding spot. The banks were rocky and sheer on both sides of the creek. I had been watching muskrats swimming in the water, and had seen one swim through hanging kudzu vines into what I thought was solid stone. Upon pulling back the vines and scaring the shit out of the muskrats, I found an open space under an overhang of rock. I'd always loved hiding, and was immediately smitten with such a perfectly camouflaged spot. But weeks later, in this moment, I thought of it as my best hope. As I came close to my hiding spot, I ducked down and swam underneath to my hole in the stone. I only surfaced once I was safely behind my curtain of kudzu vines. I waited there for several minutes, trying to silence my heavy breathing and slow my rampaging heartbeat, until I heard the sounds of heavy crashing through the underbrush. I screamed a little, but thankfully had clamped a hand over my mouth in time to muffle it. As the sounds of snapping twigs and rustling leaves got closer, I could hear the men panting and cursing under their breath. It sounded as if they were walking on the edge of the bank a few feet above me. After they had moved down a ways, I heard a thud on the ground and an angry yell, as if one of the men had tripped and fallen. Another voice shushed him and said something that made me tremble. "Shut up, she'll hear you." I had never been more terrified than that moment.
I can imagine.
I cried silently, pressing my back against the rock and praying they would never find me. Even after I heard their footsteps continuing down the bank and into silence, I remained hidden behind the kudzu. I stayed there, delirious with fear and shivering in the water, until the sun had begun to dip low in the sky. I finally began to make my way back to my clothes and go home, picking my way along the deer trails that would let me move as silently as possible. When I had gotten close to the beach, I stayed hidden in the undergrowth and watched for several minutes to make sure those two slime balls weren't anywhere nearby. Although I had found several footprints circling my clothes and pacing along the bank, the guys were nowhere to be seen. My shirt and jeans were still there, but my panties were gone. I threw on my clothes
Sickos.
and ran the whole way home. I never told my mother about what happened at the creek, because I knew she would ban me from ever going into the woods. I never saw those guys again, nor did I ever see anyone else down at that stretch of the beach after that. But needless to say, I never went skinny dipping again. Number 4. I volunteer with the Wildlife Conservation Group. In a nutshell, we patrol some pretty out-of-the-way areas, and sometimes stay the night in the forest. In the fall of 2014, I was showing 2 brand new recruits around this really isolated area. We drove in on an old logging trail, and by the time we got there, it was nearing dark. The actual spot I was showing them was about a 20-minute hike. When we eventually got there, one of them, an 18-year-old female, decided to come with me, while the other, a 19-year-old male, stayed in the truck because he wasn't comfortable walking through the woods in the dark. This was volunteer work, so whatever. I walked down to a river with one of the recruits. Using flashlights, we took a quick look. But when we got back a little under an hour later, the guy who stayed behind in the truck was just staring at us, like we were crazy or something. He began asking us about where we went with a terrified look on his face. I pointed in the direction of where we went, and he simply said, "No," and pointed to the other side of the trail. He told us we were walking through the woods back there as he pointed to the woods opposite us.
Ooh.
Because he was a little on edge before and it was dark, I assumed he just saw an animal or something. I assured him that it was nothing, and after a few awkward moments, we decided to head off. Not much further down the trail, we came across a fair-sized tree in the road that definitely wasn't there before. He began exclaiming things like, "I told you so. There's something else out here."
Ooh.
Beginning to feel a little uneasy myself, I began to slow down and reach for my door handle to get out and take a look at our obstacle. When through the dim light coming from the taillights of our truck, I clearly saw someone jumping from the bush behind us and sprinting for the truck. I began cursing as I hit the gas and ran our truck over the tree, sending everything in the cab flying everywhere. Both of the rookies were yelling as I sped down the horribly unkempt logging trail. Eventually, I slowed down, and we drove back to the office in complete silence. By the time we got back, it was around 1:30 a.m. I called up one of the group managers and explained what happened. I was called the next day and informed both recruits had quit. To this day, I have no idea what that was about. I choose to believe it was some kind of late-night logger who was just as surprised as we were. That's the only explanation that lets me sleep at night.
which it probably wasn't.
Hi guys, Lazy here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed these stories from out in the woods. I thought they were quite creepy. You know, my friend, he lives in a place that's really close to this creepy wood, but we always had fun there. You know, we played some BB guns and good times, good times. How about you guys? Do you guys live near any creepy woods? Have any experiences? Let me know down in the comments. Smash that like button, or I'll smash you. And, oh, cheeky. And I'll have another video for you guys very soon. So until then, stay spooky. And remember, the best things happen in the dark.
I don't know,
We left
Liz.
from our house on Christmas Eve at about 2 p.m. and climbed into our dad's truck. Truck. My dad's truck. We live in a suburb of Ontario. We live in a suburb of Ontario. We live in a... I can't say Ontario. We live in a suburb of Ontario, but we were venturing out into the woods for Christmas.
A little some bloopers there. I don't know, dude. Before they built the houses and things around it, back in Tuckahoe, Oklahoma, there was some wild wilderness out there. Some eerie woods around where I lived. So yeah. All right, let's see. Is anybody on? Nope, nobody's on. Okay, well. Wow, well, at least I've had a few views. You know, you guys are really making it hard for me to keep it broadcasting. You know that? You can say something in the chat. Like I said, even though it may take me a little while, once the video is over, or if I'm at a stopping point, I will minimize the video and minimize the window and check and see if anybody's on there. And I will say hi to you guys. But anyway, let's see. All right, well, let's see here. Let's do one more. Let's do one more, and you know what? I think I know who we're gonna do. Do I have any of there? Okay. I don't know. You guys want some Mr. Ballin? I haven't watched Mr. Ballin in a while. Why don't we do that? There we go. Oh, this is brand new. Yeah, this is a new one. Never ignore native. Blah, blah, blah. Never ignore native wisdom. You've been warned. Well, I know that. So how about we take a look at this? This will be the last video. This will be the last video tonight. And, yeah. This will be the last video for tonight. All right, let's go. See what Mr. Ballin has for us. Come on.
One summer day, a man named John Randolph was hiking through a remote forest in Colorado
when he began to smell something terrible. Intrigued, he followed the smell until it brought him to this clearing, and in the clearing, John saw what looked like an old campsite. Now, John is out in the middle of nowhere, and so the idea that somebody was camping out here in what looked like a long-term settlement was pretty bizarre to John. And so John walked into the clearing to see what was going on, and when he turned the corner and saw the ground in the middle of the campsite, he saw something that at first he couldn't even process. It was just so horrible, it just looked fake. But eventually he realized what he was looking at was real, at which point John turned around, sprinted out of there, and began screaming for help. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious story format, then you come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So if that's of interest to you, please invite the like button to go out to lunch with you, but once you get there, spend the entire time chewing as loudly as possible with your mouth wide open. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story.
Alright, Mr. Ballin, The Clearing.
On the freezing cold night of February 8th, 1874, a 65-year-old man named Israel Swan sat around this roaring fire with a big group of men inside of this valley in western Colorado. The men around the fire, including Israel, were all gold prospectors, which meant they traveled the western United States looking for gold. But over the past several weeks, this group of prospectors had been trapped in this valley because of all the terrible winter storms. They had these storms coming in that each time would dump up to 6 feet of snow. But on this particular night, as Israel sat by the fire, enjoying the flames and hearing people tell stories, one of Israel's friends, one of the other gold prospectors, whose name was Alfred Packer, he stood up and basically pitched the whole group as to why they should come with him and leave the valley right now. Basically, Alfred told the group that, the weather is starting to turn a bit, it's not as bad anymore, the snow's starting to melt, and Alfred said, I know a pathway out of here that will take us out of this valley in just 2 weeks, and it'll bring us right to Breckenridge, Colorado, which was an area that was known by prospectors for having lots and lots of gold. And so Alfred's basically telling them, this is a win-win. We can get out of here sooner, and we can get rich. After Alfred made this pitch, he sat back down, and everybody just stayed quiet for a second. And Israel, he kind of looked around and watched to see if anybody would take Alfred up on his proposition. Now, Israel knew, unlike him, most of the other prospectors didn't like Alfred. They said he was lazy and difficult. But Israel felt like that was really not the reason they did not like his friend. He believed the reason other people did not like Alfred was because Alfred had epilepsy, which meant he periodically had seizures. And because he had seizures, it kind of made him a liability for journeys like this, where, the whole group really needs to rely on everybody, and everybody needs to pull their own weight. And so they were kind of worried about a guy who, at any moment, could just become kind of useless because he was having a seizure. But for Israel, Alfred's epilepsy really didn't matter. He didn't feel like Alfred was some huge liability. He felt like Alfred was actually very smart and quite bold. And so for him to stand up and make this pitch just kind of felt like in keeping with who he was. He was somebody that wanted to get things done, and Israel liked that about him. However, just because Israel liked Alfred, that didn't mean he was just going to naturally go with Alfred and do his big plan, but he was at least thinking about it. And as Israel was weighing out the pros and cons of, whether or not he should go with Alfred, he happened to look across the fire, and he saw one of the men, this really big guy, was sitting there looking really serious and just shaking his head slowly back and forth, like, no, you guys can't be considering leaving early. And then the big guy stood up, and he held out his hand right in front of Alfred, basically telling him, like, don't say another word. And then this guy, while still looking at Alfred, he said, if you leave right now, all of your friends will die. And then this big guy sat back down again, and then everybody around the fire just sat there really tense for a few seconds in total silence. The big man who had just spoken was not a gold prospector. He was actually very different than the rest of the people sitting around this fire. His name was Ure, and he was a Native American chief of the Tawash band of the Ute tribe. And Chief Ure had actually saved the lives of everybody, Israel and Alfred included, who was sitting around this fire. Because a few weeks earlier, this whole group of gold prospectors...
Wow.
prospectors had wound up lost in this valley, which was the valley where Chief Ure lived with his tribe, and he had found them stumbling around on the brink of death with all the snow coming down. And so Chief Ure and his people brought the prospectors some food and water. They helped them set up a campsite right near a river, and then Chief Ure told them to stay put in this campsite and ride out the winter, and then in the springtime, when the snow melts, it'll be safe for you all to leave.
Okay, moral of the story already. When the chief of a Native American tribe is willing to bring you all in and offer you food and shelter, and he flat out gets up and tells you, do not go with that guy, or do not leave this place right now, because if you do, you will die. Ride the storm out, wait until spring. If he tells you to do that, if someone like that tells me to do that, I'm listening to what he says. Because someone like that knows these woods better, way better than I do. He's an expert. He's lived here all his life. This is his home. This is his home. He knows it like the back of his hand. So, yeah, if someone like him, if someone like this chief, if someone like this tribal chief told me to not go and just sit it out, ride the storm out, wait till spring, I'm going with him. I'm doing what he tells me to do. So, but anyway, let's go.
Now, at first, the gold prospectors were only thankful and just totally psyched that Chief Ure had found them and given them this campsite. I mean, this was great. And so they had no problem agreeing to, wait until the spring to finally leave.
Yeah.
But now, after several weeks of being kind of trapped in this camp, the whole group was really starting to get restless. They were worried if they didn't leave soon, there'd be no more gold for them to mine. And for Israel specifically, there was even more pressure on him to go out and find gold, because he had told his family that this would be his last treasure hunting adventure ever. And so he really couldn't go home empty-handed. He literally needed the gold in order to continue to survive and take care of his family. So when Alfred stood up and broke the kind of tense silence and said to Chief Ure, thank you for your concern, but I am going to leave early, and I just hope others will come with me. At that point, Israel saw the conviction in Alfred, and Israel really felt like he did need to leave now. He needed to get that gold. And so Israel said, you know what? I'll go with you as well. And then after Israel said he would go, 4 other gold prospectors also volunteered to leave early with Alfred. Chief Ure could tell he was not going to change any of these guys' minds. And so even though he felt like this was a terrible idea, he shifted his focus from trying to stop them to just trying to give them as much information as he could about the area they were going to go into. And so he called all the volunteers who'd be leaving early over to him, and then Chief Ure drew a map in the dirt on the ground, and he told Alfred and Israel and the other 4 volunteers that you have to follow the river out of here. It'll bring you to this mountain range called the San Juan Mountain Range, and you cannot attempt to go over those mountains. You will not make it. You gotta follow that river and go around the mountain range, and then once you do, on the other side, there will be an outpost where you can stop, get supplies, rest, and then continue the rest of the way towards Breckenridge. And then after Chief Ure had explained all this, he made sure to mark an X on his dirt map exactly where the outpost would be, and then Chief Ure just turned around and walked over to his horse and rode away. And then shortly after that, Alfred, Israel, and the rest of the gold prospectors also turned in for the night. The next morning, Israel, Alfred, and the other 4 volunteers who were going to be going on this journey, they got up early and began packing up their stuff. And as they did, one of the other gold prospectors, who had not volunteered to go with them, who would be staying in the valley until the springtime, he actually came forward and said he would help them carry their supplies as far as he could go, using his horse. But at some point, he would need to stop, drop off their stuff, and then they would be on their own. And so the men were very thankful about this. And so shortly after eating breakfast, they were all ready to go, and they hit the trail. As Israel and the rest of the prospectors began to hike their way up and out of the valley, they began to see off in the distance the huge, jagged mountains of the San Juan mountain range, but they were careful to kind of veer closer to the north to stay along that river path, because they knew they were not supposed to go up and over the mountains.
Oh, I bet that's a sight to see. I bet that would have been a sight to see, especially around that time.
And as Israel trudged through the snow in a line of men, he held on to a coffee pot, a metal coffee pot that he kept hot coals inside of. This not only kept his hands warm, but also, if he ran out of matches, he could easily start a fire using the coals.
There you go.
And so as he's clutching this magnificent warm coffee pot in the freezing cold weather, Israel heard someone walking up behind him, and so he turned around and he saw it was Alfred. And he looked totally miserable, way more miserable than Israel was. And so, without even thinking about it, Israel just handed off his warm coffee pot to Alfred. And Alfred took it and clutched it and was obviously so thankful. Now, none of these gold prospectors had struck it rich. They were all basically poor. But of all these gold prospectors, Alfred really had the least of all of them. And as a result, Israel kind of felt protective of Alfred. And also, Alfred was half the age of Israel. Alfred was 30 years old. And so Israel kind of viewed Alfred as like a lost kid trying to find his way. Alfred had also confided in Israel that when the Civil War broke out in the United States, Alfred had attempted to join the Union Army on 2 different occasions because he wanted to fight the slave-holding Confederate Army. But in both cases, they kicked Alfred out for his epilepsy. But that had not stopped Alfred from tattooing on his arm his battalion information and his name. And unfortunately, because Alfred could not read or write, he misspelled his name when he gave it to the tattoo artist. And so when he got the tattoo, it did not say Alfred for his first name. It said Alfred, A-L-F-E-R-D. And from that point on, that was his name. Nobody called him Alfred, they called him Alfred. And so this was kind of embarrassing for him. And then after getting rejected from the military, Alfred kind of bounced around from one job to the next, never really putting his roots down and never starting a family. And so again, Israel just felt like this was a guy who needed some help. And so after Alfred very happily accepted that coffee pot from Israel, he in turn reached into his jacket and pulled out a flask with some alcohol in it, and he handed it to Israel, almost like a thank you for giving me this warm coffee pot. And then the 2 friends walked side by side for a while, passing back and forth the flask and the coffee pot. And then by late afternoon that day, when the snow was really starting to come down, the prospector who had volunteered to use his horse to help move some of their supplies, he had finally reached a point where he said, my horse can't go any farther, the weather's too bad, and so he dropped all their supplies, and then he turned and headed back down the trail. And very likely, as these men watched him disappear down the trail, they all had the same thought. I just gotta suck it up for 2 weeks to get through this treacherous journey, and I will get to Breckenridge, and I will become rich. Thank you to Better.
Uh-huh. But I get the feeling this is going to end badly.
Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. Taking care of our mental health is no longer considered a taboo subject. However, actually asking for help when you are the one who's struggling feels just as taboo as ever. There's this fear that you'll be viewed as weak if you ask for help and show a side of you that's kind of vulnerable, when in reality, it's really the opposite. Asking for help when you need it shows strength. And if you do it, it's like right away, your life will improve. The second you let somebody else in, things are going to get better. I can say confidently that if I had not allowed somebody into my life, a therapist, back in 2018 when I was totally depressed, I don't know if I'd still be here. I was going down a very dark path, and I fundamentally believe therapy is what saved my life. Look, therapy is not a one-size-fits-all solution, but if you're struggling right now, I would really encourage you to give it a try. Plus, with the new year having just happened, now is a great time to finally take the plunge and give therapy a shot. And a great therapy platform, especially for people who have never used therapy before, is BetterHelp. BetterHelp is a highly reviewed online therapy platform.
There you go.
Which means you can get the help you need right from the comfort of your own home. Get matched with a BetterHelp therapist after filling out a brief survey online, and then it's up to you how you communicate with your therapist, whether it's through messaging, video, or phone call, or some combination. Also, with BetterHelp, you can switch therapists at any time at no additional cost. Go to our sponsor, BetterHelp.com/MrBallin for 10% off your first month of therapy with BetterHelp, and get matched with a therapist who will listen and help.
All right. See, guys, let that be a lesson to you. Never be afraid to ask for help. Don't ever be afraid to ask for help. Like Mr. Ballin said, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign when you want to ask, when you are asking for help and need help, that's a sign of inner strength. And it is. So yeah, if you guys are out there, you need help, ask for it. No, do what he suggested and get some help with BetterHelp.com. It's never wrong to ask for help. What's wrong is not asking for help at all and then regretting it later. All right, guys, back to the story.
Two weeks would pass by, and Alfred, Israel, and the other 4 prospectors did not show up at that outpost that Chief Ray had pointed out, which was on the other side of the San Juan Mountains. That was going to be their first official stop before they continued the rest of the way to Breckenridge. And then another 2 weeks went by, and still they did not show up at the outpost, and they didn't show up at any of the other camps in the surrounding areas. Now, Alfred's big plan for this group was really dependent on the weather holding up. When they left, it was true that the weather was improving, it was snowing less, but within a couple of days of this group setting off on the trip, those winter storms came back with a vengeance and just dumped snow all over the valley and all across the trail this group would have been on in their attempt to leave. But the only people who knew that these men had embarked on this perilous journey was the men themselves, and then also Chief Ray and the other gold prospectors who had decided to stay in the valley until spring. But
yeah, they were probably the smart ones. No, not probably. They were the smart ones.
Even if Chief Ray and those other prospectors knew that Alfred, Israel, and the others were in trouble, they would have no way of helping them or getting to them or even communicating to the outside world. They were completely stuck in the valley and they basically couldn't do anything. And so, in short, it appeared that Alfred, Israel, and the other 4 men were totally lost somewhere out in the wild, but nobody knew. But that would all change on April 16, 1874, roughly 2 months after Israel, Alfred, and the others had begun what was supposed to be a 2-week-long journey. That morning, a group of officials who manned the outpost that Israel and Alfred and the others were supposed to go to, they were having breakfast in one of the outpost's little log cabins. And as they're eating and talking to each other, suddenly from behind them, the door to the cabin flies open, and these officials, they turn around, and they see standing in the doorway is this totally disheveled-looking guy with long hair that's sticking up in the air, and a huge bushy beard, and in one hand he's got a rifle, and in the other hand he's got a metal coffee pot. And his eyes were darting like crazy side to side, and he was clearly in shock, and he was trying to speak, but he just couldn't. This man was Alfred. And it was obvious to the officials that this man is in dire need of help. And so without even asking him any questions, they whisked him inside, shut the door, got him some food, got him some water, and immediately Alfred's wolfing down the food as fast as he can until he began vomiting, at which point he apologized profusely and said, I've been starving out in the wild for weeks, and it must have done something to my intestinal tract, it's probably damaged. But frankly, the officials did not care about the fact that he threw up all over the ground. They were worried this guy was going to die right then and there. And so the officials helped Alfred get cleaned up and put in warm clothes. And then Alfred asked them, do you have any whiskey? I want to kind of warm my body up. And they said, no problem. They handed him some whiskey. And so Alfred threw a couple of shots back. And then after that, it was pretty obvious that Alfred had kind of relaxed a little bit. And then at that point, one of the officials asked Alfred, what happened to you? As soon as Alfred was asked this question, he shut his eyes and kind of grimaced, like even the thought of what had happened to him was just too painful to think about. But after a moment of silence, Alfred, with his eyes still closed, told the officials that he had been with 5 men and they were trying to hike their way out of the valley to get to Breckenridge, Colorado to look for gold. But as they were hiking this trail, this huge storm came in and made it really hard to navigate the trail they were on. And so the group decided they would actually cut through the San Juan mountain range. The thing Chief Ray said, don't do that, do not go over the mountains. They decided to do that. But as they were traversing these treacherous mountains, it was clear that Alfred was just not keeping up with the group. And so unfortunately, they made the decision to leave Alfred behind to die. And he knew he was being abandoned to die. And so he had to watch as his 5 friends, disappeared into the snow. But, amazingly, Alfred did not die. Instead, he would spend the next nearly 2 months stumbling through the snowy forest, having no idea where he was going, eating roots and flowers and looking for shelter any chance he got. But the thing that really allowed him to survive out in the wild was when he was abandoned by the 5 others, he was in possession of that coffee pot that had the coals inside of it. And so at night, he was able to start fires, and then also at one point, he was so hungry that he cooked his leather shoes in the fire and ate them, because again, this guy is starving. And so really, he was on the brink of death when he randomly stumbled into this outpost and found this cabin. After Alfred finished telling his story, the officials were just totally shocked and silent, and Alfred eventually would ask them a question. He would say, "Have any of my men come through here? Did anybody else survive?" And they would say, "No, it's only you. We have not seen anybody else." Now, the officials did not send out a search party right away, mostly because it seemed kind of obvious that Alfred's men were likely dead by this point. It's been 2 months since they started that journey. The chances are just not good that they survived. But even if these other men were not dead yet, the officials had no idea where to begin their search. They knew that if they actually wanted to go looking for these guys, they would need Alfred to lead the search, because he's the only one who knows where they could be. But Alfred was not healthy enough to go out in the wild and lead the search. And so for several weeks, Alfred just stayed in the outpost, resting and recovering, and then finally, when he was healthy enough, he would go out and lead a search party to go find the missing men, but unfortunately, he couldn't find anything. And so it wasn't until that summer, when all the snow had finally melted, that the mystery was finally solved about what happened to those other men. On August 20th, 1874, a traveling artist named John Randolph was hiking through a forest in western Colorado, roughly in the area where those other prospectors would have been walking on their attempt to leave the valley. And as John Randolph was walking through the area, he began smelling this horrible smell. And so John followed the smell until it brought him to this clearing, and then in the clearing was what looked like an old beat-up campsite. And so, being curious, John walked into the clearing to see who was in this campsite. But when he turned the corner and saw what was on the ground in the middle of this campsite, he froze, because on the ground in the middle of this campsite were 5 dead men all lying perfectly in a row. They were the source of the terrible smell. And right away, even though John was in shock from what he's seeing, he could tell that these 5 men did not die from something natural. One guy was missing his head altogether, and the other 4 had obvious signs of something being smashed really hard, probably repeatedly, into their heads. But that wasn't all. The other thing John immediately noticed is that the 5 bodies were in very different states of decay. 2 of the bodies were basically skeletons, but the other 3 were not. They were basically intact. Their chests had been cut and flayed open, but they all looked like they had died somewhat recently. In fact, one of the men looked so lively that it seemed like he was just sleeping, despite the gaping wound in his chest and his head that clearly indicated he was dead. Now, John wanted to turn and run away, but he had this morbid curiosity. He wanted to know what he was even looking at. What happened to these guys? And so, kind of against his better judgment, he walked a little bit closer to the bodies, and when he got close enough, he noticed something else that was totally off about the scene. When he was looking down at these men, he could tell that the wounds they had sustained, especially in their chest, looked surgical, like whoever had wounded them, whoever had cut them, had done so with an incredible amount of precision. This was not random hacks that got these guys killed. This was like a butcher carving up meat. And then John happened to look up from these 5 bodies, and he noticed just a little ways away was the remains of a burned-out fire pit. And then there was a trail that kind of led off into the woods behind the fire. And so again, John, he wants to run, but he can't help but be really curious. And so he walked past the bodies, he went to the fire pit, and he followed that trail kind of back into the woods, and he found this ramshackle shelter kind of tucked away in the woods that was abandoned. No one was in there, but it had all the signs of someone living here for a pretty long period of time. And then suddenly, it was like all these pieces came together, and John realized what he had just stumbled on. Clearly, those 5 men had been murdered, and the person who murdered them very likely lived in this camp. And over the course of what looks like weeks or months, this person was butchering these men and then cooking their body parts over that fire and eating them.
Ew! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Yikes! Ugh.
This is like a cannibal camp. And John, he's thinking, is this guy going to come back? Whoever lives here, are they coming back soon? He didn't know. And so kind of in a panic, he pulled out a sketchbook, he sketched the area, and then he turned and sprinted out of there to go find help. It would turn out John, the illustrator, was totally correct about what he thought was happening at that camp. After Alfred was left behind to die, those 5 other men carried on into the night up into the mountains, and then somebody attacked them, began killing them, and eating them. And that person was Alfred. That was why Alfred had survived for so long. It wasn't just that he was able to make fires at night, it was that he was able to make fires at night and eat his friends. Now, no one has ever been able to actually determine how Alfred went about killing these 5 men, or even when he killed these 5 men. All we know is that based on the investigation, 4 of his victims appeared to have been asleep when they were murdered, but the 5th victim, who actually was Israel, the one guy who really liked Alfred and looked out for him and was kind of like a father figure to him, he was the only one who showed signs of a big struggle before he was murdered. While Alfred denied killing all 5 of the men, he said that he basically only killed one of them and it was self-defense, and somebody else killed the other 4. It was kind of confusing. Despite those claims he had, the one thing Alfred never denied was the cannibalism. In fact, Alfred straight up told authorities that he grew to really like the taste of human meat. In fact, when they searched that campsite that John Randolph found, they would find the remains of a dead deer that was right near the campsite. But despite it being right there, Alfred never attempted to carve it up and eat it. He just kept going back to his stockpile of human meat and eating that. In the end, Alfred was convicted of murder and he was sentenced to 40 years in prison. But in 1901, when he was 92 years old, he was granted parole, and right away, Alfred became a vegetarian and then died a few years later. From the 1800s all the way through the 1900s, Bodmin's St. Lawrence Hospital was one of the largest running asylums in all of England.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. Jeez. Can you imagine that? Ew. It really shows you just how low the human will can stoop to, or just how low a human being can stoop to. That's the lowest form of cannibalism. I guarantee you, even if they chose to keep him, it probably would have been the same thing. I don't know. Maybe not, but oh man. Alfred Packer, the murderer and man-eater. Hannibal Packer. Cannibal convicted murder human days. Description of the most revolting crime of the century. Oh man. Yeah, that's true.
From the 1800s all the way through the 1900s, Bodmin's St. Lawrence Hospital was one of the largest running asylums in all of England. But in 2002, it was permanently shut down due to so many accusations of patient mistreatment. Now, after it was shut down, the property kind of fell into disrepair. It was basically abandoned. And so when it became totally overgrown, it began attracting vandals and urban explorers. And so the owners of the property finally just put up a fence all the way around the hospital, and they hired security guards to patrol the property at night to keep vandals out. And so these security guards began doing that, and very quickly they began reporting that they were seeing and hearing things they couldn't explain on this property. They'd hear things like footsteps on floors that they knew were vacant, or they'd hear doors slamming, and at least one guard claimed to have seen a gurney roll into the hallway from a room, but then when he checked the room, there was nobody in there. But perhaps the scariest account came from a security guard who, when he showed up for work that night, he was feeling kind of sick. And so when he was out walking the property, he found somewhere to lay down in one of the smaller hospital buildings. And as he was laying there with his eyes closed, he began hearing a tapping sound coming from outside. And so he stood up and he walked over to the window and he looked out into the night, but he couldn't see anything out there that would cause this tapping sound. And so he shrugged and turned back around to go lay down again. But when he turned around, standing in this room with him was this skinny woman wearing a white hospital gown, and she had this grimy black hair that was covering her face. And so the security guard is just staring at her, totally terrified, and before he could do anything, this woman just turns and walks into a wall and vanishes. To hear the full terrifying story, check out the latest episode on our newest Ballin Studios podcast called Bedtime Stories. This episode is called Night Shift, and if you want more episodes like this, Bedtime Stories releases new episodes every Wednesday, and they're available on all podcast platforms. So that's going to do it. If you got something out of today's story, be sure to check out our podcast called the Mr. Ballin Podcast, where we have hundreds of stories, a lot like this one, but many of them are only available on the podcast. Again, it's called the Mr. Ballin Podcast, and it's available on Amazon Music. Wait, don't go anywhere. If you're looking for more strange, dark, and mysterious videos, click here.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ballin. Thank you, Mr. Ballin. Oh, man. All right, well, there you go. Like I said, never ignore native wisdom. Oh my gosh. You know, there you go. All right, guys. That's going to do it for me tonight. Oh, good Lord, it's 1:30 a.m. Yeah, that's going to do it for me, at least for right now. Well, at least I got, oh, look, I've got 14 views. Nice. And one of these days I'll have a busy chat, but oh well. Right now, I'm just happy to do broadcasts. So, okay, guys, that's going to be it for me tonight. I'm going to stop right here. Hopefully, maybe I can do some more later. I might try and do. I'll be looking forward to a possible interview for an internship from Zico, maybe tomorrow or maybe Thursday. So I'll be busy with that, but that'll be in the daytime. So hopefully, maybe if not this week, maybe the weekend, I might do some more. I might get back to shadowing someone's garage, do some tech stuff, things like that. So, all right, guys, that's going to be it for me. For those of you who did stop up to watch with me, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for staying with me. You didn't have to be silent, but hey, that's your choice. So thanks for being with me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, you gotta stay safe, you gotta stay warm, because it is cold out there, and you gotta stay awesome. I'll see you later.